righty. Very happy Wednesday, and welcome to the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is June 17th of 2026. Hope everyone is having themselves a good day as we are halfway through the week. And boy, I have been able to generate some conversation pieces that I will like to address to. Obviously, today we'll kick things off talking about the New York Mets and the Cincinnati Reds as they get ready to face each other in game three of a three-game series later on at the bottom of the hour. So we'll talk plenty about that. We'll transition into some NBA conversations as the offseason is among us, and we'll have some wrestling conversations there. The first thing that I want to just come out and make a public statement about, and this is something that I have seen on my media page for the last several days. I really am skeptic about wanting to make a statement on this, but I think, everyone has weigh their opinions, and I will share my opinions. And yes, my opinion may not be so flamboyant to some of those out there, but it isn't. I mean, I do have a take and a side on this. So over the weekend in San Francisco, Major League Baseball and the San Francisco Giants have what do we want to go? They have celebrated Pride Month. Okay. And so every team can celebrate it in their own way. And what we learned so this far in Major League Baseball is that there are a few selective teams that do not celebrate the actual wording of Pride Month. And they have done other things in correspondence. And so when it's up to the organization to choose if they want to celebrate it or not. It's up to the organization on how they want us honor it or not. And if they choose not to, they choose not to. That is a perspective that a fan can determine for themselves. Some fans are for it and some fans are against it. And sure, it's never going to meet eye to eye. But when an organization chooses to support and to honor in a dedicated day towards this, they will do it in different ways, whether it's on field activities, off field activities, special patch on uniforms. Well, the San Francisco Giants decided to embroid the rainbow colors on their logo on their bill cap. And so some players did not oppose to that, yet they were still asked to wear it. And therefore, they took it upon themselves to alter the bill cap by writing a biblical verse. Okay. And MLB has recently warned players moving forward and organizations that this is unacceptable. And so I'm trying to think about the two sides here, and and I try to create an analysis. So my first thought was thinking of ownership, commissioner of MLB not liking where it's not been these you know um, statements written on bill caps are not authorized by MLB, and therefore that is what the warning is. And I could completely defend that. It's the organizations that have to get authority and approvals from Major League Baseball to alter a uniform, whether it's a color design, a jersey design, a patch on their sleeve, or a type of whatever on the bill cap. And I'm assuming that the Giants got the authority from Major League Baseball to get the rainbow etching on their logo brand on the bill caps. And so this was unauthorized. So I understand the warning. And I feel like that's what is being brought to light. But here's my thing across the board, not just within baseball, but within football, hockey, basketball, soccer, whatever, is that if an organization decides to practice something, it should be within the right of the player to choose to opt out of it. So the three ball players that were warned from the San Francisco Giants, this is not the only time this incident has happened. They should have the option not to wear those products. Now, the argument and afterwards that they exclaimed was that writing the biblical verse was recognizing, the rainbow color to their faith. Not going to get into that. But it should be their option as a player to opt out of doing anything they're not supposed that they don't want to do based off of reasoning um such as faith. And it's like in employment. A lot of jobs do respect and provide ways for certain faiths to practice their faiths on certain days. I know in one of my previous employments, they had rooms available for that purpose. It was designated. So to hold, maybe it was, I don't know if it was maybe blown out of proportion. I'm assuming so. I think, like you said, the warning is a little bit harsh, but I do understand Major League Baseball side. But I do not believe that these players have done anything wrong outside and just making sure that they are not misrepresenting themselves and who they are. And it seems like a lot of sports, including baseball this past year, has referenced a lot of things back around a faith. And I'm not going to specifically say what the faith, I'm not looking to offend anybody, but I and even notice throughout the Cincinnati Reds, Gino Suarez is a big person who practices faith and doesn't have afraid to show it. And I think that's great. I think it's rubbed across a lot of other people. Sal Stewart last night during his post game interview was also just referencing everything back around to what he believes in. And I think that's great. I think that's a really big movement. And I know you are treading water. I get that, but I can see where the middle grounds are. And so I wanted to speak on that because I didn't have a problem with it. It doesn't bother me. A matter of fact, if I was at the stadium, it would probably be even hard to see that. You would only, as a fan, unless you're sitting up close and or watching it on TV. But I also don't think that there's anything wrong with expressing who you believe in. I just think where I think the line is crossed was the fact that it altered the the uniform and it wasn't approved by Major League Baseball. And so while Major League Baseball tries to stay open, open minded, they are quickly taken away. So that's it. Let's get down into business here on a Wednesday. The Mets and the Reds last night. What a good game. And this is where I would argue the evidence show getting out to that early lead benefits not only you offensively, but you defensively. Four of the five runs they scored was done in the first inning. You had a home run by Sal Stewart, which was a 3-run home run, put the Reds up on the board. And then you had a solo home run by Spencer Steer later in the inning. They got out to a 4-0 lead to begin the frame. And, it is a very close game, but here's what it does to an organization that struggles, especially in the back end of the games. You give your bullpen room to get themselves in and out of jams. TJ Antone in the eighth inning began the frame walking two batters. He went on striking out the side. There is a morale and confidence level that you provide when you can get out to an early lead. And so, no, it wasn't 12 runs like Monday. The offense wasn't flying all the way through the game. But the Reds acknowledged and took advantage of two pitchers that haven't been on their best game. You had Tobias Myers, who really has been in and out of starting games, and then you had last night, who was is it Senga? Kodai Senga, who just come back from an injury. And so the Reds capitalized on the starting pitching and where they were positioned at, the vulnerability of the Mets starting pitching, got out to an early lead. And, for the conversations that we've had, this pitching staff, especially in the bullpen, that has been just terrible this past last, 6 weeks of play. In this last two games show that they're kind of almost elite stuff. So it's kind of a hit or miss. It's a coin flip. I get it. Brady Singer, 5 innings. He gave up 3 hits, only 1 run, allowed 3 walks and 5 strikeouts. And so, when your best player, Gino Suarez, is 0 for 4 and he strikes out 4 times, not performing, you are seeing guys like Sal Stewart who went 2 for 3 and have 4 RBIs. Spencer Steer went 1 for 3, drew a walk with them. Both of them hit home runs. So I really thought it was a great performance. They secured a series win, the first series win in the month of June, and they look for a series sweep. Now, I'm not trying to be greedy. Let's remain humble. But the Reds desperately need a sweep. I remember we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and, a sweep will be nice. At least one thing. You finish off the homestands playing 500 baseball. You finish off this homestands before you go out to New York. And let's face it, the rest of the month is not going to be a walk through the park. You go to the Bronx for 3 games over the weekend. You come home to Milwaukee Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you're out on the road to begin the month of July against, excuse me, you're out on the road against Pittsburgh in a 3-game set, and then you're on a series against the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know what's after that for 4th of July weekend, but what's down the stretch is not going to be an easy task. So finding momentum now can definitely help this organization out heading into this back end of the month. And you're capitalized. You are seeing the Reds capitalize on the vulnerability that the New York Mets are giving us. Talking about today's game, first pitch is scheduled for 12:40. It is very nice out there. It's going to get pretty warm. Low 80s expected. The Mets 32-41 looks to avoid the sweep as they send out right-handed pitcher Nolan McLean. Nolan McLean is probably one of the better pitchers out of this entire rotation right now. He's 3-4 with the 4.01 ERA. His last outing was last Friday against the Braves. He went 4 innings, giving up 3 hits on 2 earned runs, 4 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Well, they'll go up against the 35-37 Reds, who are in 5th place still in the National League Central. Left-handed pitcher Nick Lodolo on the mound, 2-1 on the record, 5.21 ERA. The last pitched also on Friday against the Arizona Diamondbacks, where he went 5 1/3 of an inning, giving up 5 hits on 2 earned runs, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. Like I said, the Reds have a chance to go for the sweep with the victory today. They're off tomorrow, travel day, heading out to the Bronx in New York. Got some positive news if you are a Cincinnati Reds fan. Ellie Cruz who was at Great American Ballpark this past weekend. We're on the field, shagging some ground balls, running the bases. He's taken some batting practice. Well, he's headed out to, uh, is it Gwinnett, I believe, uh, to take on to join the AAA Louisville team this weekend to face against the Stripers in a rehab assignment. So everything is looking good if you are Ellie Dela Cruz. The importance is to get him back in that lineup as soon as possible because his part in that lineup is very, very important. The big question that we could start asking ourselves, and the big question that Terry Francona and the coaching staff is going to have to ask themselves, is who will they be sending down to the minor leagues when Ellie Dela Cruz comes back? Edwin Arroyo made his MLB debut not too long ago, replacing Ellie Dela Cruz, and he's starting to settle in. Matt McLean hasn't been playing so well. Could there be a possibility that we see Matt McLean come in and be sent down, keeping Edwin Arroyo up at the major leagues for a little bit at least, while he's performing great baseball? So I think it's good questions, and not to say anything bad against Matt McLean, but let's be realistic here. Maybe Matt McLean needs to go down to AAA, get a couple of weeks down there, resetting, refocusing, critiquing his fine motor skills, and then gets recalled back up to the roster. I mean, that's, Noelvi Marte got sent down to the minor leagues, and look what happened to him. And, I'm, he's not going to be this perfect turned around ball player, but at least in his recent return, he's not this, he's proven that he's learned and adapted. So that's the big question coming out of um, right now with Ellie Dela Cruz. Everyone else is still kind of up in the air. We'll cover that a little bit later this week heading into the weekend. Let's look at the National League Central for a moment. Trying to place that fan right on me without having that echo static in the mix. Well, in the National League, the Brewers beat the Guardians 2-1 yesterday. The Cardinals beat the Padres 3-2. The Rockies beat the Cubs 5-2, and the Pirates beat the Athletics 6-5. Today's game, along with the Mets and the Reds, at 2:15, the Pirates and Cardinals square off. At 7:40, the Guardians and Brewers will square off. At 8:05, Rockies will meet the Cubs at Wrigley Field, and at 9:40, the Pirates and the Athletics. For more information, check out MLB.com. Also, don't forget while you're there to check out the voting page. You can vote 5 times a day between now and June 25th. The voting ends at noon Eastern Standard Time. You can vote 5 times a day daily of your favorite ball players who you think should be representing their organization at the Midsummer Classic. Vote today. I know I am. Voting for Ellie Dela Cruz. Get him back. Get him in the All-Star game. Well, the FIFA World Cup is underway, still in the group rounds here. France and Senegal are tied at get one apiece yesterday in final results. Norway picked up a 4-1 victory against Iraq. Argentina picked up a 3-0 victory against Algeria. And that was the return of Lionel Messi, who he suffered a small injury at the end of May as MLS uh, took a little hiatus to wait for players to join the World Cup. And Messi went down in the final game. He was able to make a return here in last night's game against Algeria. and he ends up tying the record for the with who was it? I have it here. I know I post about it. I just don't know the name. And half the names I can't even pronounce anyways, right? Let me see here who I got. So, yeah, I posted right here. Lionel Messi ties Miroslav Klose for the second most World Cup. Lionel Messi ties Miroslav Klose record for the most World Cup goals in male history after a hat trick against Algeria. So Lionel Messi ties with Klose, who with a total of 16 goals during the World Cup in the male's most goals record. And second place is Ronaldo with 15, and Mueller and Mbappe at 14 goals. So a lot of great stuff there for FIFA World Cup, and we're only in the group section, right? We haven't even expanded that way, right? So only one game has already taken place for today. That was Austria beating Jordan 3-1. At 1 p.m. on Fox, you can see Portugal taking on DR Congo. And then at 4 p.m. on Fox, you can see England taking on Croatia. And then over on FS1 tonight on 7 p.m., Ghana takes on Panama, and Uzbekistan takes on Colombia at 10 p.m. Available on FS1. So that is your FIFA World Cup news and excitement there as we head into a middle of a week. All right, let's jump into some WWE conversations or wrestling talk by all means. Earlier today, it was written by a sports editor, David Evans, who spoke about former general manager of NXT, Ava, Rain, who was born Simone Johnson, the daughter of Dwayne The Rock Johnson, as she addressed about her WWE's departure for the first time. Speaking in depth, she told the Downside podcast host, um, Marco Sorrells, that the exit came down to many accumulating factors. The 24-year-old announced on January 30th, 2026 that she will not renew her contract after 6 years with the company. She said the decision is one that she does not regret, and she described herself as generally happy in her months since. Rain confirmed that her departure date was on June 29th, marked the expiration of her WWE deal. And it was confirmed that she's now working alongside her mother, Danny Garcia. The podcast interview, conducted roughly 6 months post exit, is the most expansive on record statement she has made about her season or her reasons for leaving. No disciplinary or creative dispute has been confirmed by any named party as a contributing factor. Okay, so this is her explanation. There wasn't one particular thing, unfortunately. It was like a lot of things and been something that was on my mind for a while. I am grateful for the time at WWE. I wouldn't change it for the world. I got to live out a dream that the younger me always wanted to, but I think it was time for something new and time for something different, and really I don't regret leaving the company. I'm really happy now. Yeah. So it's just disclosed information confirming r- is it Rain's Ava's leave, right? Simone. And For me, she's been a. I thought she could have played a bigger role as the Bloodline, as the Rock, and all that stuff. I think she was suited down there in NXT. I think she did a quite some well job. But you know what? You're right. If your ceiling is so high and you think you could do more, some athletes are finding themselves a better success outside the WWE than they are inside. And let's be honest, okay? Matt Cardona, for example, went away from the WWE, had tremendous success in the independent circuit, and look where that's got him this far in the WWE. Let's face it, he hasn't done anything, he hasn't won any big titles, and so he's not. I mean, to me, he hasn't really done anything, and he's had a better career outside the WWE. So, but we wish her the best of luck. Other WWE wrestling conversation. Raw for the next 2 weeks will be having different some holiday tapings. Um, a couple weeks in Europe. Raw is back in the United States on June 15th in Baltimore for 1 week return. It was at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on Netflix. However, on Monday, June 22nd, Raw will be in London, England, and get a televised stop on the just completed European tour. So they will, while the main roster makes its way to Saudi Arabia on Friday for Friday SmackDown for Night of Champions, which is the premium live event in Riyadh following Saturday. And as we know by now, Netflix streams their live shows whenever it happens. So the U.S. next Monday, June 22nd, Raw will be live in London, England at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time. WWE will be back in the States on Monday, the night after Night of Champions, but their stop in Atlantic City, New Jersey at Jim Wallen Boardwalk Hall on June 29th will also be a taping for July 23rd episode of SmackDown. So, and they say July 3rd episode of SmackDown. They say that so that families can enjoy their holidays with their family for 4th of July. So that means that Raw on Netflix on June 29th, which is less than 2 weeks away, will start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time so that immediately following Raw, WWE can record SmackDown. So that is kind of just a hiccup for that to understand just where the WWE is. I don't mind it. If you watch it, you watch it. That's why it's on Netflix. All right, I wanted to talk about some King of the Ring action here and possible scenarios that we could see as we still await for the result of Javon Evans and Jey Uso. So as the conversations are starting to heat up because we're starting to flourish with what is actually happening as results coming in. So I was thinking a lot about this, and I'm pretty sure I'll probably say this. This won't be the only time I say this, but I feel like there's a handful of selection. All right, so let's start off by talking about Javon versus Jey Uso. I think Jey Uso is a clear indication of winning and advancing to Saudi Arabia. It only makes sense. And so I'm going off of the theory that Jey Uso will win and go on to face Obafemi in Riyadh to crown the King of the Ring champ. And if you look at the four men, and when I say the four men, you got Oba, you got Jay, you also got Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Those are your four challengers that will be, four members that you create a scenario with for SummerSlam this year. because the winner of the King of the Ring tournament will face a champion of his choosing. And so, if you look at 4 men, those 4 match possibilities are all great for SummerSlam. Let's face it. There's nothing that goes against it. Not in my books. But what is more logical? So let's start off with Obafemi. Obafemi, let's say he goes on and wins the King of the Ring tournament. He could either face Roman Reigns or he could face Cody Rhodes for their championship. Now, Obafemi and Cody Rhodes, we saw that match before, right? We saw that match before, and it was interrupted by Drew McIntyre. So we really didn't get to see who was the better man. And so if you see Obafemi versus Cody Rhodes, it's a part 2. This time you can only hope that the match will be clean and we can finally see a true winner. Now, Oba and Roman sounds more interesting at this time, and that's because it's been the most recent, biggest conversation among WWE talks. Roman Reigns spoke out at WrestleMania inviting Obafemi to come face-to-face with him at some point by the end of this year. That comes after after Obafemi beats Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. So I think it warrants both matches. Now, there's a lot of speculations of not if, but when we see Roman Reigns versus Oba, because to me, that's a blockbuster match. It's probably a WrestleMania worthy match. And if it's not going to happen at WrestleMania, it might as well happen at SummerSlam. Some speculate that Oba and Roman is supposed to be a SummerSlam match. And still a possibility. But the one thing we know is that Brock Lesnar and Obafemi are 1-1 apiece among times they met against each other. Oba won at WrestleMania, and Brock won in the last PLE. Clash in Italy, right? Is it Clash in Italy? Italy? Yeah. So we're only telling us ourselves in the minds because SummerSlam is going to be held in Detroit, hometown of Brock Lesnar. And there's a lot of rumors out there that he may be retiring. He even flirted with it at WrestleMania. Big news. But the conversation was, could we see Brock Lesnar and Obafemi part 3 at SummerSlam? Now, if you ask me, because I've heard other options like a triple threat match and this and that, and I don't buy it. To me, I say Oba and Brock at SummerSlam. Just 2 men. That's all that needs to happen. Which means in order for that to happen, something needs to happen at Saudi Arabia where Brock Lesnar cost Obafemi the match. Obafemi goes on and claims that, look, you beat me, you gave me you handed me my own ass on a silver platter, but guess what? I'm still here, I'm still fighting. You go lick your wounds, and I am still competing to become champion. Maybe Brock doesn't sit well with that and goes to Riyadh and cost him, saying that, look, as long as I'm around, you're not going to get a chance at the championship. I beat you, we're 1-1. I'm back on top, technically. Still the beast. So that's where the conclusion of the 3-match set happens at SummerSlam. Which means that if that is to happen, Jey Uso would end up winning. Jey Uso beats Javon Evans and now faces Obafemi, David and Goliath, and Jay's overcome obstacles before. I just don't see him beating Oba in a clean fight. But let's say Jey Uso does win. He has 2 options. He could face Cody Rhodes or he could face Roman Reigns. Okay? Well, let's look at Cody Rhodes for a moment. They've crossed paths before. They've been on the same side of the park before. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso would be a really good match. No questions asked. But where we sit at is that right now the best match for them? Roman Reigns and Jey Uso to me seem more of a compelling match. Now, hey, granted, we've already seen this match take place a couple years ago. But the last time we saw this, Jey Uso didn't go off on his own. He wasn't a champion. He didn't become champion as an independent wrestler. And so to me, in my opinion, Jey Uso has grown. Now, if you also relate everything back around to what we've seen with the bloodline over the last since following WrestleMania, Jacob Fatu trying to get his hands on the World Heavyweight Championship, but Roman Reigns uh, gains control. And after you see, this back and forth, I could honestly see a reason why Jey Uso wants another crack at Roman Reigns. And that would be at SummerSlam. So the other thing about this situation, if we do get Obafemi and Jey Uso, it doesn't matter who wins. The question would be lying is that Roman would probably want Jay to go after Cody Rhodes. But Cody Rhodes is so far away from these three men left standing that to me right now, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, it does make sense to see Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. It just right now doesn't fit. Comes out of nowhere. Right now, Cody is in a feud spot with Drew, with Gunther, and with especially with Sami Zayn. And I believe that's something that we can be led to see at SummerSlam. Maybe a triple threat match. But if you're Jey Uso and you win this and you support the bloodline, you wouldn't want to go after Roman Reigns, because if you go after Roman Reigns, you're challenging his authority. You're challenging his position once again, and we already know what that outcome was. Matter of fact, Jey Uso has almost had to create enemies to make this happen again. So it's a lot up in the air. I get it. But that's also what's fun of it. Think about this. A lot of scenarios, possibility. You ask yourself, what direction does the WWE plan to go down just on the verge of Night of Champions and ahead of SummerSlam, which is later this summer. So I think one thing is certain, and I with all due respect, I think Jey Uso beats Javon Evans, and then we worry about what happens next week. Now, I don't know if that match is on SmackDown. I hope it would be. It may be on Raw, but we'll see. All right, something we don't typically do a whole lot on this show, but I truly believe that the NBA has some big shoes to fill this offseason. Two big questions that I think comes that you'll look to answer to this offseason in the NBA. Let's discuss that now. The first one has to be, what's next for LeBron James? I mean, LeBron James could possibly retire. And I think year after year after year, speculations of LeBron James retiring comes further, but always something pulls him back. Now, here's the one thing that I get upset about when it comes down to the NBA is that you don't expect players to be there playing a full season once they build credibility. So The big question is what's next for the legendary career of LeBron James? What his decisions are set, and what could be something that we look forward to seeing. And according to Sam Quinn on CBSSports.com, he kind of broke down some options for LeBron James and gave a percentage rating on them. So we'll look into that. And coming in at the highest percentage is the Los Angeles Lakers. James is settled in Los Angeles. He looks like at least a fringe contender when they blitz through March with a 15-2 record given. And Lakers have about $48 million in possible cap space. But LeBron James is only going to go to a team where he knows financially can afford him. And if any team that can afford LeBron James, it has to be the Lakers. Lakers can take back contracts through trade and open up that with space, but what what the big question I have for any team, especially the Lakers in this situation, is that the Lakers need to worry about not winning now, but possibly their future. It's kind of tough to even say that, but they do need to start worrying about their future. And at some point, the future is going to be without LeBron James. The Lakers typically operate above salary cap. So, I mean, it could be probably one of the best chances of them all. Well, as we talked about being settled in Los Angeles, why not the Clippers? Well, according to this article, they have a 3% chance. Couldn't really leave them off the table, I guess, in this sense. They're in Los Angeles, which is the second most desirable geographic possibility for James behind only the Lakers. And they have the capacity to create cap space or at least give James a mid-level exception so he could get paid. But the one other thing that we know about LeBron James is that if he's going to win, he's going to win now. Right? Time is not against his favor. He is going to go somewhere where he's going to win. Golden State Warriors is mentioned at 30%. Warriors at this point appear to be the strongest external suitor available. That's according to ESPN's Brian Windhorst. James does not return to the Lakers. It could be possible for sides. James has battled Stephon Curry and Damon Green in 4 NBA finals, with Golden State winning 3 of them. James has publicly expressed the desire one day to play alongside Curry. Warriors tried to James a few years ago, and he was shot the deal down. Would he be interested now? There are 2 potential questions. The first one is money. For now, Golden State is really only positioned to offer the non-taxpayer mid-level exception at about $15 million. If that's not enough, the Warriors would have to construct the signing and trade tricky, given how little matching salaries they have to work with. For now, we would assume that if James goes to Golden State, it would be for a mid-level figure, which then opens up the question, why not the Clippers? We also have a high percentage of 20%, which to me is pretty high, of James retiring. He is the last player in the NBA left from the 2003 draft and 2004 and 2005. He's the oldest player in basketball pretty comfortably, so retirement is always on the table. There just hasn't been much intel suggesting it at all, and likely at this stage. Rich Paul thinks James could play 5 more years. Haven't we been saying that for the past 5 years? It's hard to argue with him. James was just the best player in the first round series victory over Houston Rockets. He acquired himself reasonably well again, arguably the NBA's best team in Oklahoma City Thunder. He was just 41 years old as an all-star. He certainly can still play. The question is whether he wants to. He's indicted. According to James told Time Magazine, it's up to the mind. Where the mind goes, the body will lay. When I'm not the when I'm not in love with getting on to the arena on game days 5 hours before to start my preparation, if I'm not of love with getting to practice a half an hour beforehand, then I'll know I'll be done because then I'm going to start cheating the game. That's a respectful answer, to be honest. And then a couple other teams are thrown out there. Cleveland Cavaliers at 5%, and Miami Heat at 1%. Possible suitors. If you think about a retirement, you might want to go or suggest where you attend to, where you start your career off and where you also won championships with. So, what does the future lies? Wow, based off of all that information, I still like the Lakers. I feel like they're the highest suitable point. I think the question goes, oh, for me, it's going to be retirement until prove me otherwise. Because, like he just mentioned in that statement to Time Magazine, the moment you don't feel that way, the moment when you got to hang it up, and I can respect it if he still feels like he can still go and he still puts up the numbers. Look, he could go as old as he wants. Number is just a number, but um, enjoy it while we last, right? We'll pay close attention to that. That is an off-season question, but the other one here is about Giannis. Giannis has a couple of trans suitors that could be looking into him. I'm only going to be interested in the ones that seem likely. So, according to a CBS article written here under the NBA section, Sam Quinn, a couple of days ago, he gave out a handful of selections for a possible trade with Giannis. Well, a couple come to mind. I'm going to share six going down. Golden State Warriors is one. Now, I'm going to say this, and I think, I know Golden State Warriors was just mentioned with LeBron James, but if LeBron James is not in that question, then that Golden State Warriors could definitely go target Giannis for a possible trade, and to pair him up with um, Stephon Curry could be an explosive thing. The Orlando Magic has always been a notable sleeper here. Banchero could give the Bucks a young replacement star for Giannis, and the Magic had a fit issue to deal with between him and Franz Wagner anyway. While Wagner's inconsistent shooting would be ideal next to Giannis, Desmond Bain would be a perfect fit also. Wendell Carter Jr. can at least shoot a bit in the center. Those four players for Jalen Suggs, the Magic would have a monster defense there. Coming in at number four is Minnesota Timberwolves. Tim Connolly has taken more swings than almost any other general manager in the NBA. One way or another, the Wolves need one. Anthony Edwards fits with Giannis for many of the same reasons Donovan Mitchell would. There was reporting at the deadline suggestions that Giannis could be traded to the Timberwolves last year. The Athletic recently reported that the Timberwolves are holding Jaden McDaniels and Johan Bering out for trade talks. That would be an interesting combination. What about the Portland Trailblazers? Aside from perhaps the Spurs and Thunders, Portland is probably Milwaukee's preferred trade partner, anyways. The Blazers have everything the Bucks could want: young players at several positions and control over Milwaukee's draft picks between 2028 and 2030. So maybe some draft picks there. Jeremiah Grant is easy enough salary filler. Portland has two pretty notable former Giannis teammates, and Lillard and Holiday. Do they? Do they're older? What about the Boston Celtics? Probably one of the two teams that probably doesn't have to worry about securing an extension. They've been most consistently well run and competitive in the Eastern Conference team for the past decade. Giannis has publicly praised Joe's Mazzulla's Boston interest makes plenty of sense as well. I don't like that idea. I mean, if you're going to go get traded to a team, you're going to want to get traded to a team that's going to win. What about the Miami Heats? The Celtics might want Giannis. The Heats need him. Spent 4 years in the play-in tournament without him. That's where they will stay next season as well, possibly. Miami has spent years trying to and failing to trade for superstars to bring them back into the contentions. Giannis is purporting interesting in joining the Heat. There could be a moment there. So Giannis has plenty of suitables. If I'm Giannis and if I'm Minnesota, and obviously if you're Minnesota, you want to be able to get everything out of him, and you're not wrong. But if you're Giannis, you also want him to go to a team that you can win and win now. So it's just really going to be the highest bidder, right? All right, let's get back into it. Let's talk the NFL. In the last segment, we talked about Braden Sorsby here. Yes, actually, all this week, he's getting a lot of attention, probably not deserving so. Well, what did we learn about Braden Sorsby? He played for Indiana, went to Cincinnati, then got transferred earlier this year to Texas Tech, where it was then publicly released that he has a gambling addiction. Gambling addiction where he spent over $40,000 gambling against Indiana and about, I'm going to say $90,000 total between Indiana and Cincinnati. Now, his options are to go to the NFL draft or supplement draft to avoid all this legality that's been going on at the college level. But yesterday, we kind of threw out some teams that could fit Braden Sorsby. So I have a couple contenders on the line I like to kind of showcase. Arizona Cardinals are stacked right now in quarterbacks. Jacob Brissett, Gardner Minshew, and Carson Beck, who is a third-round pick. But Brissett has shown his unhappiness with his contract, wants an adjustment, but as a anticipated starter for the 2026 season. Now, could the Cardinals look to a Sorsby, pick him up to open up a new era for Mike LaFleur? Possibility, right? Carolina Panthers would be also another option, as they could pick up the fifth-year option of Bryce Young for the 2027 season, but they don't. But they could also observe that dead salary cap and hit relative ease. The Panthers come to the conclusion that Young contributions are not worth his contract demands. They could also part ways, just like Cleveland did with Baker Mayfield. Talking about Cleveland, right now you have Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel and Taylor Green. You can never be short of quarterbacks, I guess, right? Well, out of all those 4 or 5 quarterbacks, there's still not one quarterback that the Cleveland Browns can trust and inspire to carry them moving forward. Deshaun Watson got injured. He's been dealing with a lot of stuff, right? So we really don't know what he's at today and age, and that'll be something we'll pay attention to this season. Shedeur Sanders, we like to see more consistency, as well as Dylan Gabriel. They're going to get second chances. But is this where maybe Braden Sorsby gets his opportunity to slide right in, new management, and possible opportunities to make a name for himself? One of the better teams among this list is the Detroit Lions, as Jared Goff turns 32 this season, and his backup is 33-year-old Teddy Bridgewater, as an undrafted free agent, Luke Altmaier. The team had previously used a third-round pick on Hendon Hooker in 2023, but Hooker never had been a threat to Goff's claim as a starting quarterback, and now is on his fourth team. Sorsby could beat Goff, but 3 years later in the timeline, Lions are likely to be competitive to finding themselves within striking distance to a top quarterback in 2027. So maybe you address that here. Detroit did give Goff a 4-year extension in May 2024, but the dead cap hit drops below 40 million. So could that be an opportunity? Indianapolis Colts have Daniel Jones on a 2-year contract, but he's coming off of significant injuries. Roughly $35 million deal. If the team were to move on from him after this season, there is reasonably path for Indianapolis to determine if Sorsby is a valuable starting quarterback. And that would be a wise decision, knowing that you have a whole year to play with it. Miami Dolphins moved on for Tua Tagovailoa. They got free agent Malik Willis and still employ Quinn Ewers. So could this also be a new start to find Sorsby in? The Jets have 3 picks in next year's first round, as well as their own picks in the second round and third round. They are flush with draft picks, capitals, and could make a selection without impacting their drafts next year. Remember, if you win the bid of a supplement draft, you forfeit that pick of the next NFL draft in April. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield's entering his final year of contract with the Bucs. Number 1 overall selected, has been in the position before. Cleveland was not ready to commit to the top market money to him. The question may be the same with Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. Mayfield publicly declares a personal deadline to have a contract negotiation prior to training camp, or it will have to wait until after the season, which I think that should happen anyways. So Sorsby has an opportunity to become a player. There's a lot of teams that have a reason to draft Braden Sorsby. And the question is not whether he's good on the field, because the issue that is at hand is that he is dealing with gambling issues. And is that a red flag not to go out and sign him? No, I think it's a flag overall, but it's not a red flag to me. So could could a NFL team be out there? So you have to separate yourself in this situation between Braden Sorsby off the field, and if that's fixable, which I'm sure it is, to Braden Sorsby on the field. The fact is Braden Sorsby on the field is I think, decent quarterback. And I think because the supplement draft is overlooked so often, it may be a hit or miss from him. But this is where you have to choose just to play the down game on this. You risk going into the draft not getting anybody, not being picked up. What do you do next? You go try out for a team, right? That's all you can really do. So I even think along this list, I think Buffalo Bills are on there, possibly. But I personally believe, like, if you're the Jets, you have nothing to lose. You're not giving up anything. If you're Arizona, you might find a solution for a possible future quarterback, especially when your current quarterback situation is unhappy. For Cleveland, you could never have too many quarterbacks. We already know that. For Detroit, you're trying to invest into the future of your organization, and you believe in Brandon. For Miami, I mean, you got off with Tua. You really didn't pick up anyone special. You already know what Malik could do, so you might as well. So the possibility presents themselves. And if you think about the 2027, where does teams lie among how good they were expected to be? Here's the other waiting offer, is that those teams could be looking for a number 1 pick next year, which could give them a leverage on upcoming quarterbacks for next year. Talk about Arch Manning. So possibilities run wild. That is all the time I have for you guys today. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Please head on over to our social media pages. You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. and take us on the road with you wherever you get your podcasting needs at by listening to the TNC Sports Talk on your podcasting station. We'll be back again tomorrow from 12 to 1. Thank you guys for tuning in to the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.